And we're live on the Virtual Real Estate Investing Podcast. Super pumped. We've got Mr. Marketing Machine. I just made up that nickname. Mr. Marketing Machine, Josh Miller from GoForClose. First off, Frank, how you doing today, Frank?
I'm doing really, really good. I am a couple days into a dry May, so I'm not drinking this month. Probably my first dry month since I was deployed in the Army. And very fitting that it's the first podcast guest we've had that's actively drinking alcohol. In the podcast. What's up, Josh?
Well, John sent me this message that said, make sure you're drinking on the show to rub it in Frank's face. So that's what's going on.
Excellent. I like it. And what have you been up to, Josh? How you been, man? You are our first return guest on the podcast. And I don't want to say you're our favorite, but we're very excited to have you back, man.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a huge honor. So thanks so much. And I love watching your shows. I've been watching all of them that you produce with other folks. So great job and keep up the good work. It's really fun to see just the guests you have on, and you guys are good. So keep it up.
Hey, appreciate it, man. All right, so let's jump into it. We are into second quarter, but OMG, Josh, how crazy is real estate right now, brother?
There's no inventory. That's the thing. It's like there's nothing. There's, realtors, investors, everybody's just struggling because there's no inventory. You're talking about some markets of there being 3 days of inventory available when this time last year there was 30 days. I mean, it's absolutely wild. And even in markets where it shouldn't be, like Vegas, I just looked, there's 15 days of inventory when, a third of the population doesn't have work. It doesn't make any sense, but it's a reality. So yeah, we're in a really, by far the toughest, most competitive situation I've ever been in. So yeah, it's like, this is where you become men, I guess.
Yeah. So to your point, like this is when you become men. What impact is this having on the secondary market and people like us that deal in the off-market space? Like what's happening to us? Is our margins compressing, or is it just more competitive? Like what are you seeing happening to your average wholesaler or flipper?
Yeah, so one, we've been on this like 12-year, everything's going great. So you got more investors in the space than ever before. And then you pair that with it's easier than ever because there's great companies like PropStream and ListSource. And they're just like, it's never been easier. And Batch is coming out with all kinds of, just make it so easy to be an investor and to do your marketing. And then the perfect trifecta of it all is there's no inventory. So you got more people competing. It's easier than ever to market. And there's just, there's no inventory because of macroeconomics that are way beyond my head. And I have no clue what's going on. It's like the music stopped. There's no chairs. I'm like, what's going on? But, it's reality is there's no inventory for investors. I shouldn't say none, but there's far fewer than there ever was before.
I want to ask a question sorry to cut you off, but I don't know the answer to this, and I'm curious if you have a thought. So there's a lot of people wholesaling. It's very competitive to get a deal, but buyers are buying at crazy high prices. Doesn't matter if it's the primary market or the secondary market. Are wholesalers making more on their average deal right now or less? What do you think?
I think more. The smart ones are making more for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Before you had to sell it at 80% of ARV or whatever, fair market value, however you did your calcs. Now you can pretty much sell at close to 95% because, these buyers are so hungry and there's nothing else for them to buy. So we're able to buy it at almost the same price, but sell it at a much higher price. So I think the margins, if you're doing it right, should be much, much greater for you at this moment.
And then go ahead and look into your crystal ball. Tell me what you think, right? Like I tend to think it's going to stay strong until at least fourth quarter, right? And then, where are we going to come out in 2022? I'm not nearly as confident, but I feel very confident it's going to remain super, super strong, at least through the rest of 2021. But what's your crystal ball telling you?
I'm totally speaking on my butt right now, so excuse me, but I see a couple things going on. One is we printed $6 trillion. So there's going to be massive asset inflation. So I do see that home prices are going to continue to rise. I look at the regulations going in place by the Biden administration, and there's some serious stuff going on. Like there's been, I don't know if these are going to go through, but there's a 30% rental, I don't know the exact term, like who qualifies, but 30% of your rental and rent and utilities are going to get paid for. That's insane. So what is that going to do to home prices? What is that going to do to rents? It's going to increase them. They're also going to reimpose the $15,000 tax credit for your first-time home buyer. What is that going to do to home prices? And what is that going to do? You know, so I don't see anything. I don't think the home prices are going down. I really don't see how they could. So I don't know. That's kind of what I see, but who knows?
So how's all this impacting your business, right? You run an agency, right?
Yeah.
You're servicing clients. How is it impacting how you serve them, if at all? Maybe it doesn't matter, but how's it impacting you in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it's good for my business because it's getting harder and harder for investors to get deals and get leads. And so I'm getting a lot of home investor franchise owners who, you know, they're paying 10, 20K a month on their marketing and not getting anything. So they're like, hey, what other alternatives are there? So it's good for my business overall, but for the investors, yeah, our cost per lead is definitely going up, just like every other investors, where, you know, it used to be so much easier, and it's hard. Like I always thought that things would get easier because we'd be getting better and better, but even getting better, it's getting harder with just the amount of people in this space and the competition. So yeah.
Nice. So we've shifted our business in 2021. Well, let me take a step back. In 2020, our main lead channel was mass texting. We would send SMS messages to all the potential sellers out there to try to get deals. And we felt like that started to get more difficult. We started seeing less text messages getting to the actual sellers. And during December, we switched and started doing more cold calling. And now we're still with launch control. About, we'll say 20% of our effort is with launch control, which is a texting platform, but 80% of our effort is now strictly cold calling. We use Zen Call and are really happy with it right now. But talk to me a little bit about texting. I know you're right on top of all that technology right now.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but all the launch control, lead Sherpa, Alt Roar, all these batch, all these different skip trade or texting platforms, they all use a carrier behind the scenes. There's not really a carrier, but it's someone to send out these phone numbers, to purchase your phone numbers. Well, a year and a half ago, Verizon said, hey, if you want to use those platforms, you have to use these special numbers. They're still 10-digit long, so it looks confusing. They look like regular phone numbers, but they're called 10 DSE. They're special numbers. And when Verizon said you had to do that, nothing changed. They just said, we're going to charge you like 0.2 of a penny, and you got to start using these numbers. Well, AT&T and T-Mobile, Sprint, they said the same thing. We're going to make you start doing that in 2021. Nobody thought anything of it. Well, what they ended up doing, though, is saying not only do you have to use those special numbers, but we're also going to require you to register your business that you are a business sending text messages out. And so that's the big change that's going on right now. And it's pushed by AT&T and Sprint. And saying that you have to register your business, and there's no way around it. It's not like you can create a fake email address. No, it's like the legit deal where you're going to have to register your EIN number, your business name, your contact information, the whole thing. And when you register and you say your use case and marketing is allowed, they're going to say, okay, you're going to be designated this trust score of, I'm going to make up a number at 30. And with that trust score of 30, you're allowed to send so many messages out. The big change, though, is before, if you were spamming, what would happen is they would just shut down your number and you had to get a different number, right? And so that's why you rotate all your numbers, because your numbers are getting burned and they're no longer any good. Now, all of your numbers, so whether you have one number or 10,000 phone numbers, they're all going to be associated with your business and your trust score. And so as soon as you burn one number, it's like burning your company. They're not going to be like, oh, we forgive you for that number. Go ahead and use your other number. They're going to shut your entire thing down. And so that's a big difference now is you're not going to be able to do big mass marketing like you could before. Essentially, if you can do mass marketing now without burning a number, you're going to be fine. If you see your numbers aren't good because you're sending spam, you're not going to be good at all. And you should immediately change the type of marketing you're doing. So I think that's a really good call to switch to cold calling. You're like definitely ahead of the game. Like you saw this was coming. So great job there.
And do we think that's just going to kill text? Like, do we know like how many texts the carrier can send out based off the guidance given by AT&T, Verizon, and the other carriers?
Yeah. So there is. I mean, realistically, I've asked this question directly many, many times, and they're not saying what that magic number is as far as like, first of all, how many can you send out without being required to register? And the thought is that it could be up to 500 segments a day. So 500 segments, segment is like 160 characters. So basically one, maybe two texts. So up to 500 segments a day, you may be able to get around not having to register. But that's an iffy statement. To your question specifically, Frank, regarding how many can you, if you register and you given a trust score, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be like probably around 10,000 messages a day, but that's not really the risk. The risk is that you start sending out what they consider spam, and they're just going to completely shut you down. And it's not like you can get up tomorrow because you need a legitimate business and everything else, and all your numbers are going to be lost and all that good stuff. So yeah.
So we've had a lot of really good conversations about multi-channel marketing, right? Like cold calling, SMS, email, direct mail, and trying to figure out how to put all those together to identify motivated sellers. So as you look at your business, how does text change that equation in your personal business now?
Yeah, so we love text messaging for the follow-up and for, touching base with people, for nurturing leads and all that. And for the most part, we're getting rid of all of that. So we're going to still be doing text messaging, but very, very, very small targeted lists. I was talking to you earlier before this call about your niche list. So we're still going to be texting our niche list because it's going to be a low volume, but it's not going to be like touching base with them 30 times over a course of a year, which is what we do now. It's going to be just one hit, boom, try to get their attention, get them on the phone. And with no follow-up. So it's definitely dramatically impacting, but I still think you should keep it in your in your ammo basically for that super niche list, because it really does work. I mean, you still are getting the 95%, or we're getting a 95% open rate, 92 to 95%, which is fantastic. So we definitely don't want to see that go away.
Yeah. So water shut off list, you can still text, right? A tired landlord and feed
Yeah,
you're probably
exactly.
doing something else, right? So
Well put.
so what channel are you pushing people towards, right? So if someone said I do it all text, right?
Yeah.
I'm screwed. Where do you
Yeah.
like where's your first piece of advice?
I mean, the easiest thing to switch to is cold calling. So I would just say, hey, keep doing what you're doing, but switch to cold calling, which kind of leads me into, okay, how do you get those cold callers and everything else, which is a whole other animal to tackle. We've been finding that it's like harder than ever to get good VAs in the Philippines, where before we could hire really good ones and there was a line out the door at $3 an hour. Then it went up to $4 an hour, and now we're paying $5 an hour, sometimes $6, to get a good cold caller. And where before it was us saying no to people, now we're actually having to offer bonuses. Like we're offering the 13th month, which is a big deal in the Philippines. Essentially, you give them and Christmas, you give them an extra month of paid salary. All sorts of things, healthcare, like things like before we would never have dreamed of doing, but there's just a shortage of VAs. I have no clue, but I think it has something to do with COVID and just a surplus of people using virtual assistants now is my guess. I don't know. Do either of you have any thoughts around this of what's going on?
Yeah, we've got like 15 virtual assistants from the Philippines. We've got 2 from Pakistan and 1 from El Salvador that just started. We needed a Spanish speaker, so we got 1 from El Salvador. We've been really lucky. We had a couple really good ones to start, and then we've kind of built out the team from referrals from those good people we started with. So at our number with 15 from the Philippines, we have had to let some go because they weren't kind of keeping up with what they needed to do. But for the most part, I think we've been really lucky. And our starting salary has been $4 an hour, and then we give them $25 for a signed contract as a bonus. But what do you think, Frank?
Well, everything John said, I think, is great. But I think I have a contrasting opinion, right? Like, I think, yes, VAs are making more. They're getting bonuses. But I would argue that a year ago, they probably were not being treated totally fair, right? By U.S. like hustlers like us. And I almost feel like we created a system that incentivized them to like get one job, and then while they have that job, side hustle and do another job. Like, you see so many VAs charging like 4 different clients at a time, right? And they're distracted. Like, it's so common. And that leads to a lot of turnover and a lot of churn. So I look at this like, this is healthy. Like, us paying a living wage, maybe giving them some incentive comp when they close contracts, like in our business, giving quarterly bonuses to our top VAs that actually have to do some planning and managerial work, like offering them healthcare if they're not working for a provider. Like, I'm like, yo, that's actually going to be a competitive advantage for us over time, because a lot of people are going to be stuck treating them like offshore resources. And we're like, no, we're going to treat them like any employee. We're just doing some currency arbitrage here because it's obviously cheaper to pay you relative to a U.S. employee. But all those benefits we would have, like, we'll give them to you as long as you do a good job and give us your full time and attention. So that's how I think it should be looked at. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, it's so difficult because you're asking people to work the midnight shift, right? So they're working the graveyard shift all through the night. So typically a lot of them do have a day job because they're not too sure whether you'll be consistent or anything like that. So I think you showing that, hey, we're different. We are in this for the long haul. I think that's really cool because then you'll get the people that will stick. It's almost like rental properties. The most expensive part of a rental is the turnover. So not to compare the two, but if you can keep, a tenant, let's compare them to tenants. If you can keep the tenant in, that's going to pay off in the long run rather than that turnover. Because I know that you're right, Frank. There's a lot of people in the space that are like, oh, they just get burnt out, use them and lose them in 2 months. And I think that's horrible because, you're right. They're going to always be looking for that next investor to work with. So well put.
Yeah, and then I think if it's cold calling, right, to Frank's original question, like, hey, what do you do if texting isn't working? To when we went from texting to cold calling, I would say the number of virtual assistants we needed was probably 5x, right, to kind of keep the same volume going, right? So if the path is to cold calling, I think that's something that you kind of have to crack that nut. Not like I said, I think we've been very fortunate to have some awesome virtual assistants, and we've got we've got the 15 in the Philippines. We've got 2 from Pakistan, right? One of them from Pakistan saw me post in a Facebook group, sent me a message immediately, interviewed with us. We hired her. Then we hired her 19-year-old sister. Her 19-year-old sister is one of the best cold callers we have, has closed multiple deals. 19-year-old girl from Pakistan is just crushing it, just amazing. It's a great story.
That is so cool. And it almost goes to show you, like, you should definitely throw away all, like, it's insane. Yeah, we just hired a whole group of folks from Egypt, and who would have thought that Egypt was a great place for cold callers, but we're doing it. It's just very surprising. So yeah, I guess don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah.
For sure. So one thing we've talked about a lot is the list that you should pull. There's kind of 2 theories there. You can pull a very broad list that is just every landlord or every absentee owner in a town, or you can get super niche, right, and go, hey, we just want the people who have had their water shut off by the water company. Much smaller list, but your percentage or your chance of success is going to be much higher. So what are your thoughts on that combo? And then you got any super hot new lists you can share with us?
Yeah, so the whole thing is to figure out your budget beforehand and then figure out what kind of strategy you're going to be doing. So if you got a bigger budget, go big. Like seriously, forget about the niche list. You're going to hit them anyways. These water shutoffs and all that stuff, they're going to be on your main absentee list anyways. So just pull absentee with some equity and go big. Eventually, after a while, circle back and fill it in with these scrapers and everything else. But yeah, it's just the time and the headache of trying to go after all these niche lists. I don't think it's worth it if you're going really big, because you're going to hit them anyways. And then before you start pulling the niche list, I would then say figure out how you're going to market to the niche list differently if you have it. So go big, and then go small. Or if you don't have a big budget, if you don't have 15 VAs working for you, then yeah, go super niche and forget about the big absentee list. Don't pull that, and only pull the code violations. What was some lists I was going to share with you? Oh, I mean, it's nothing hidden, but I really like PropStream just recently started to include pre-probates, which ruined it for me because I was like the only one that was pulling these. I was scraping some websites to get these, and now they're just giving it to everybody, which is great. Take advantage of that. It's I think it's an option under. Do you know, John or Frank? Do you know where that's found in PropStream? It's like
no, I don't. I saw the thing where they had added that, but I don't know where exactly it is in that pull down. One thing I was another list that they added sometime in the last 4 to 6 months is portfolios. So basically, if someone owns multiple properties, it's now showing up there. And we just got under contract a portfolio of 6 houses today from that feature, where we would talk to a seller and they wouldn't disclose that they owned additional properties. But now our acquisition manager knows right off the bat, in PropStream, if it says they own 6 houses, he just starts with, hey, if you want to get rid of all 6 houses, we can buy all 6 houses, and it just completely changes the tone.
Well, also, like, it makes the case for others to attack tired landlords, right? Because who owns portfolios? It's landlords, right? People don't have 6 primary residences to just lie around, right? Like, they just don't rotate around the country. So, like, if PropStream's offering this data where it's like, hey, this person owns 7 houses or 7 multifamilies or whatever, like, you want to take advantage of that, right? So I think that does also make the argument, like, hit the tired landlord list, hit the absentee owners. They're the ones who own the portfolios to begin with, right?
Did you, John, did you get any type of creative financing on those 6 deals?
We didn't on those 6. We did a 3-house portfolio in Pensacola, Florida a while ago. That was a pretty crazy creative deal, though. We basically got into it. We had to pay taxes off of like $12,000, and then we got a 0% interest, no payment for a 2-year note on the three properties. So
right on.
I think deal of all time too. So like the biggest problem with the portfolio was it was one house, the nicest house, had a tenant in it paying way below market rent. Like, rents haven't been updated in a decade potentially, right? And the lease was still at years left on it. Like, it was like a 15-year lease or something insane. It doesn't make sense. And the tenant, right after we bought it, we called to collect rent. They're like, you know what? I just moved out yesterday. I'm out of here.
Wow.
So we got these 3 houses that I think are worth like $170,000 on an $80,000 note that we don't have to pay for 2 years. Like, that's the luckiest deal. Incredible. We might live 30 years and not have another one of these, but sometimes shit happens, you know?
I would definitely, like, people think it's luck of the draw, but I would seriously spend some time deep diving into that and figuring out, okay, what's the demographics of this person? Where did they live? What's their age? Are they married? Are they divorced? And really dissect, what is this type of lead and how can I get more of them? Because I don't think that is that lucky. I think you guys are doing large volumes, and so you're going to come across those and just figuring out how do you get more of those. So, yeah. That's super congrats on that. And That's a cool feature, John, with the multi property. I would probably, if you're going to niche list that, pull that list, like everybody that owns, let's say 3 or more properties, do a filter on it that says, I would forget about equity, honestly, just do like a own 10 or more years. And then you can append age to that using different services. I think,
Yeah.
I don't know any of the top of my head that will do that, but there's a bunch of them out there. You should pay about half a penny to append the age, and then hit everybody that's like 70 years or older. And I'm like, they're done. Like,
Yeah.
they're done. Like, they want out. And if you can structure the passive income, and they'll be done. In fact, everybody's done with rentals after you've owned a couple rentals. Like, you're done. So it sounds good, but yeah, owning multiple of them sucks. So that's a great list, actually.
That's really funny. I always say, like, the tired landlord has all the personal problems a primary residence owner has, like divorce, tax issues, but they have all the tenant issues and the other maintenance issues on top of it. They got all the motivations. So.
Yeah. I think one thing that this has taught me a lot of running an agency is I always thought it was all about the marketing. I always said, you don't own a real estate investment company, you own a marketing agency. But the more I do this, the more I realize it's like sales is really where it's at, is having good sales skills and understanding where the person's at. Because I guarantee you, for the right terms and the right numbers, every landlord in the country wants to sell. Like, it sucks, and being able to connect on that, and so it really is all about sales skills. And I've got some clients that are closing God's like so many deals, and I like, what are they doing differently than the guy who's not closing any or very few? And the difference really comes down to their sales skills. So, really hone in on that. And if you're not getting a lot of leads, you're just beginning, then use this time to really practice and get good at it. Because there's very few people that are shouting, I want to sell my house today. It's about connecting with them, and then they've got tons of options. So yeah, what do you guys think about that?
I was going to ask, because you touched on creative financing before. Do you think that is one of the distinguishing factors between people closing deals and people not?
I think, well, the problem seems to be that a lot of people make it so confusing and complicated, and the seller gets confused, and then the seller ends up going with somebody else because you're confusing. And they want simple. They don't want this mess. They're trying to get rid of a problem, not get another problem. And so I think for a lot of people, it actually hurts them to try to talk about creative financing because they just confuse the seller. But yes, if you can be so comfortable with it and keep it natural and just, absolutely, it adds another tool to the toolbox where you essentially, I really like having 6 or 7 different ways to exit that the conversation with the seller. And just be like, hey, I'm here to provide solutions. And one of those solutions is for them to list it. And honestly, just bring the best deal, the best opportunity to the seller, and it pays off in the end. But I think we're coming to a point where you got to provide value. Before, people were like, oh, what's this postcard with a picture of my house? Like, how unique? What is this? Now they get 30 of those a day. And so it's a matter of, okay, how can you provide more value? And there's so many creative people out there that are doing just some awesome stuff. And I think it's time everybody step up their game and really just be like, how can I provide more value than any other investor in the space?
I like that. That's interesting. And it's interesting to hear you talk about sales from a marketing agency perspective, right? It's like Frank and I have often talked, like, what is that interaction? What is more important, marketing or sales? How exactly do they fit together? So is there any thoughts, like, obviously you've got an awesome marketing agency, right? But is there any thoughts of, like, if I can do all the marketing stuff, do I add a sales team as well?
Yeah, honestly, like the best investing companies in the US all are built on the best sales teams, right? I mean, I saw you had Nick Perry. He was a fucking stud at hiring good salespeople. And I could go down the list of the big dogs. They have great sales guys. So, yeah, but that's something that you have to pay a lot for. Good sales guys cost a lot, and I think a lot of investors are like very hesitant to. They're looking for the $30,000-$40,000 person. Where no, you're gonna have to pony up and pay six figures if you want 7-figure results. So yeah, it's just a mind shift, I think.
But you dodged the question, Josh. So
no, I won't be doing that. I think there's great resources out there, and I think at the end of the day, that's something that you need to do it your own. My next step is to offer lead management. That's another huge opportunity that I think a lot of people miss out on. Is we generate great leads, we send the lead over, and the person talks them one time and then puts them on a really horrible follow-up system. So that's the next natural step for my agency, is to step into that lead management and hire great lead managers. It's tough though, because I think at that point you need to be personable. You need to be able to talk about the weather in Alabama or whatever, wherever you're at. And it's almost like you need US based, I think, for those positions. Somebody that can really connect with the homeowner. So no, and sales is so far out there. And there's great coaches out there that are already servicing that space.
So go ahead, Frank.
No, I was gonna shift topics. So if you got a question, go ahead.
Well, I was going to go from outbound marketing to inbound marketing, right? We paid an agency to help us with pay-per-click and Facebook advertising in 2020, and we didn't have great results. We feel like we're doing pretty decent with outbound marketing now, and we're getting ready to re-engage some inbound tactics. So I wonder, what are your favorite inbound things right now? What are you seeing with, you talked last time about some custom audience stuff on Facebook and maybe some high-speed algorithms. If you could share any of that stuff too, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, inbound is 1,000 times easier and 1,000 times cheaper once you get it dialed in and you can scale it. The problem is that most people don't have that budget to spend $20,000 on PPC, or 70,000 on month on PPC, which is really where you need to be at in order to get those $20 leads. So it's just a matter of budget. You don't have to start there, but when you hear people talking about just crushing it in multiple markets, it's because they have a really large budget and they worked up to there. So I'd say don't get discouraged. At the same time, you do need a decent sized budget to do Google Ads, and it really varies by market. I'm seeing on the very, very low end, I'm talking like shitty small little towns, you're talking $25 a day. And then the bigger markets, you need to be spending at least $200 a day in order to be showing up and for your ads to work. So I think a lot of people go in there with not a big enough budget and it just doesn't work. And they're like, oh, PPC doesn't work, when in fact, it's the best lead source out there once you get enough volume. On the Facebook side, Facebook is great. Really love it. Really love the retargeting. We're using it a lot, especially with texting going out. We're using it more and more to really target the audience. And since we can't reach them via an SMS, we're going to be reaching them via Facebook. Videos obviously work really good on there. And, there's plenty of you definitely don't need as large of a budget on Facebook as you do on PPC, on Google, I should say.
I love it. But so this is somewhat related to what I was going to ask you, and because I think about who uses PPC, right? And I think about iBuyers and institutional money. Like if they're going to get houses, like they're going to go the inbound route. They're not going to hire cold callers or start texting homeowners, right? And also my question is, in markets where there is institutional players, right? Invitation homes, doing built to rent, or Zillow, Open Door, whatever, right? Has it got to the point where it's impacting your local marketers, right? That you're servicing? Is it impacting their marketing strategy and their business?
Yeah, I mean, of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fun fact is like right now, I'm gonna murder this number, but let's say Open Door right last year was in 15 markets. Let's say this year they're in 50 markets. Next year they're gonna be in 2,000 markets, right? So numbers are completely fictitious, but they're gonna be everywhere soon. So yeah, how do you compete? I think one of the things, not to switch subjects, but to go when you're cold calling, when you're doing this outbound marketing, and you can actually target your audience, is look at who the iBuyers are targeting. And a lot of people say, oh, okay, that's who you should target so you can sell to them or sell. But I think you should take those criteria and don't buy those. So don't target those. So they only buy 1975 and newer. So target people 1975 and older, and maybe target them with the message, hey, did an iBuyer promise to buy your house and fail? We actually deliver, or whatever. So they only buy 3 2s, so go after 1 1s. And yeah, there's not going to be as much juice in these. There's a reason these iBuyers don't target those. But if you are in a market with them, I think it's a good strategy to go after what they're not going after, because they don't buy a lot of their buy box is fairly cookie box, you know.
I like that. One of the conversations Frank and I have had a lot, and I don't think we've really said publicly, is we're still trying to develop our vision for our company and exactly where we want to go, right? But we've talked a lot about Open Door and Zillow and Redfin, and understanding they have different missions and different strategies. But ultimately, like, one of our goals is to beat the iBuyers, right? And even if we don't beat Open Door, if we get anywhere close to that, we're going to be doing just fine, right? So what other tips do you have for how do we beat the big dogs, man?
Yeah, well, other than going after a different buy box than what they're going after, I think that uh, honestly, I don't know. I mean, they've got billions and billions and billions. I mean, what was their IPO just a few months ago? I mean, they lost money last year, but they were a $1 billion company. Uh, so they've got all the money in the world. So I think, yeah, just being creative and figuring out what they're doing and offering something different. Um, I would say the one thing we can do better is be personable, right? Like, I think there are a lot of folks that would rather sell to a John and Frank than they would sell to an iBuyer. So how do you be personable? How do you offer more value? Someone I just heard was talking about, he would see on the vacant lots, he would drive by, and if they had really tall grass, he would go and mow their grass and then call a homeowner up and be like, hey man, didn't want you to get a fine. I just mowed your grass. When you're thinking about selling, think of me or whatever. I mean, I think really just being creative, uh, and getting super niche too. So often we try to go so broad and figure out a niche and how you can really offer service in that one little niche. There's nothing new, right? That's like what marketing is.
Well, it's just going to force people to evolve even more than they already have, right? So we're talking about how competitive direct-to-seller marketing has gotten. All it's doing is increasing the competitiveness at scale, right? So it's like what I would see is I think it'll force people to maybe have less leads, but extract more value out of each lead. So I think creative strategies in the front and back end of your business is going to be more prevalent in the years to come. That would be like, hey, I acquire the house on seller financing or subject to, and I do like a wrap or a lease option on the back end. Like if you have less leads and you need your business to survive, you need more money out of each lead, right? How do you do that in real estate? Like creativity. So I think like that's the last place we'll probably beat the iBuyers before they crush all of us into submission in 2050 or whatever year it is that they take over.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much value we can bring. And this creative financing, a lot of people think it's like, oh, to benefit the investor, but God, no. Like, honestly, that will benefit the homeowner so much if done right. And it's exactly what they're looking for. So, and there's a million other cases where the investors, like, I'm proud of what we do. Like, I really do think that if done right, we can provide an insane amount of value and really help these homeowners. where the iBuyers and others can't. So I would say to really look deep into your company, into your soul, and see what are you doing? How, am I just another iBuyer, or can I change my company to really differentiate myself and say, look at here's how I truly help and care for you and offer value, and it's not just about the dollars. So it's tough though, especially when you're like just trying to make some money, but in the long run, it's gonna pay off dividends.
For sure. Let's ask a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. You've had a software company. You now have an agency. You're very well networked. Know a lot of real estate investors out there. What does our space need? Right? Like what do we need? We've got masterminds. We've got coaches. We've got some awesome people, maybe some not awesome people. But as you look at all these people, all these networks, what do we need?
Idea I had, so don't steal it because I really want to. No, please do, because I think it would be great. Is there's so many newbies entering the space every single month, and I'd really love to see like a center, like a rating system for all these coaches and all these gurus and all these softwares and all of this stuff, where a newbie can go and there would be thousands of reviews and rankings of these different people, because I do believe in coaches. I do believe in masterminds, but there's so many bad ones out there. I think it'd be really cool to see just a set, like, like Tap Terror, where it ranks all the different softwares or something like this, where people, newbies and experienced investors alike, can be like, oh, not only do they have all these great reviews from but like really dive deep into the company and what they offer and what they truly represent and everything else, because it's really difficult. And I think half our time is spent figuring out, okay, like you just said earlier, you use Zen Call. So there's Zen Call, there's Mojo, there's Call Tools, and somewhere to be really like, say, because a big problem in this space is affiliate links, and everybody's got their stupid affiliate link. And so when you see somebody promoting something, you're like, are they promoting it because they get an affiliate fee from that? And I mean, I don't want to badmouth any of these Facebook groups, but there's so many Facebook groups out there where if you promote something that the organizer doesn't get an affiliate link from it, you're dead. Like, it's shut down right away. So I'd really love to see something like that, where there's some good, honest reviews and rankings from everybody, and you can see right away this company's got a 1-star or this company's got a 5-star. So I would love to see that. So if you want to get going.
I like it, man.
I think that's a great answer, because what is the primary problem for newbies? Fear. It's like, who can I trust? Who's got the right information? Is this contractor going to screw me? I don't know how to do anything, right? So it's like the whole industry has this, like, it's like a black box. Like, even when you're in it, you barely know.
Yeah.
Like, we make software mistakes, and we know smart people like you. It's like.
Well, I'm constantly like, people are always telling me about new CRMs, and I dive deep and I'm like, dude, this is fucking awesome. I learned something new. This is so good. And it's so hard, because if you're brand new, how in the world are you going to compare the 100 different CRMs out there? And how in the world, even experienced people, you don't know. It's almost like just word of mouth, and it's an unfair advantage. So yeah, I think, anyways, yeah, I think it would be really cool if somebody put something like that together, help newbie and experienced alike.
Awesome. I like it. So final question is, you have to tell us your stance on cryptocurrency, but I'm going to do a quick commercial break, giving you time to think about it. So here's my commercial. The real estate market is super, super hot right now, and we want to be your cash buyers. If you have a deal out there, please email it to us at deals@graylineinvestments.com, deals@graylineinvestments.com. We want to be your cash buyer. So, Mr. Marketing Machine, tell me your stance on cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, I think we still got a long way to go. I've been telling as many people as I can for as long as I can, to put some money into it. So I really do think that we're on a bull market right now, and we're going to be going up for a while. And so there's no harm in tripling your money, pulling out the profits and buying more real estate, whatever else you want to do. So, yeah, it's crazy. Like it is super, super hot. And I think we're just at the beginning. I don't know if this number is true. Somebody just told me today, so I haven't verified, but less than 3% of investors are actually, not real estate investors, but investors in general, are actually investing in crypto at this time. And so there's this rule that unless it hits 3%, that's when you hit mass adoption. So we haven't hit mass adoption yet. And so I think there's plenty of opportunity here to get in. And I would say don't just go into YouTube and, watch whatever guy says this is the next altcoin to explode. Really do your due diligence and understand why that altcoin is a good investment and who's the team behind it and what they represent. So, but absolutely, I think it's a great use of your time to spend a few minutes to invest and figure out what to invest in. And if you don't have any time, just put some in Bitcoin. And yeah, it's not going to explode like these other altcoins, but it's definitely the safest and best long-term solution. So that's
Nice.
my 2 cents. Yeah.
Do you have a recommendation for where to go to learn that info? I just read a book called The Bitcoin Standard. That was pretty interesting. But do you have any other resources you recommend?
Yeah, I've got, my friend wrote this amazing white paper on the topic. So I'll send you that. And I don't know if you can include that in the show notes, but it's a great white paper. And then, of course, Michael Saylor has a free course, a free online academy where you can even get a degree of some sort by going through all the different courses, completely free. So, yeah, there's a lot of hype around it right now, but I think for good reason. And I think that every person should be putting at least some money and diversifying into it. So, yeah, I love it. So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, for sure. All right. If someone listening thinks that you're a smart guy and wants to do business with you, wants to sign up for your agency, how does that work and how can they get in contact with you, Josh?
Yeah, so we are market exclusive. So until we crack that nut, we're only one client per market. So we'll first make sure your market's available. Go to GoForClose.com. That's GoForClose.com. And, sign up. We can meet together, check things out. Typically, the investors that we work with are spending $4,000 a month or more in total marketing budget. So, if you're under that, best advice I would say is dive deep into cold calling. But if it's 4K or more, definitely love to talk. And thanks for the plug there, John.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. So hopefully we can have you on once a quarter or so. We definitely really enjoy having it, and we learn a lot. So thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry for talking so much. This was supposed to be a short, little, sweet thing, and it's like, but no, I really enjoy it too. Really, both of you guys are awesome guys, and really excited for your success. And so, quick question: are you building a rental portfolio, or are you just reselling those?
Right now,
we're primarily reselling. We've had a couple properties where we lease option to maybe, or not immediately, like getting rid of them, but I'd say in 3 years, all the properties in their books will be gone. So
Okay.
We're definitely in the business of getting cash into the business right now.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and we're still virtual. We're kind of consolidated in Texas, but we're still in multiple states. And I think at some point we'll hit the switch that says, okay, we want to grow a large portfolio, but it would be really nice to do that in one market as opposed to 5 different states,
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man. Well, thank you both. Thanks, John. Thank you for having me on. And look forward to doing this again.
All right. Take care, Josh.